The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. However, it's often misquoted to say that money is the root of all evil. And the misquote is a very common thing that happens when using the Bible, addressing spirituality. A lot of our philosophies come from verses taken out of context, where the cliche gets built upon rather than the original meaning. Again, when saying that the love of money is the root of all evil, it's not demonizing the thing that's loved, it's demonizing the person who's placing something on a pedestal it should not be in. Someone who loves money will do anything for that money. But money itself is not positive or negative. It is neutral. It's a neutral party. It's just a resource. Now, in spiritual culture, again, just like in religious culture, there are certain stigmas around money that come from philosophies, that come from talking points that really harm us in the long term. And truthfully, a lot of you are being harmed already just because of the way that you think about money. Understand this psychologically, something that you do not like or do not want, you find yourself self sabotaging. So if you think that money is going to corrupt you, or you think that people who have too much money are wicked, that puts you in a space where money will avoid you. So you're more times, you're likely to have us be in a situation where all of your pockets have holes in them. And that's figurative, meaning that it seems that you never have enough money. And that's not because you're being cursed. Now, a curse. Let's pay attention to something. Let's use the Bible, for example. Have you noticed that nowhere in the Bible is prosperity seen as a curse? In fact, it's seen as the blessing. I come that you might have life and life more abundantly. He lived the poor life that you might live the abundant life. You see, your generation shall be blessed. You shall be abundance, be fruitful and multiply. These are not curses being spoken. I find it interesting that today people demonize money, especially within the spiritual community. And I'll talk about that in a moment, but I want to address the psychology of it for a moment. If you think that having a vow of poverty is a good thing, you believe something that the gods in heaven don't believe. And here's proof, right? Nowhere in history do we have an example of someone disrespecting a god. And then that god goes, you know what? I got something for them. Let me get them a whole bunch of money. That'll fix that. That never happens. What? They dishonored me. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that all of their needs are met and that all of their businesses thrive and that they have land and abundance and they never lack a thing. Yeah, that should solve that problem. They'll teach them to mess with. No, that never happens. But the opposite that you see, regardless of the culture, is, oh, we're in a drought. We must have offended a god. Oh, we're in a famine. We must have offended a god. Oh, I'm without something. I'm living in a state of lack. There must be a negative spiritual force. This must be a demon that's attacking my fine. That's what we see. Now, I wanted to address that first just to deal with the psychology of money, because that on its own can help some of y'all realize why you might not be experiencing the prosperity that the royal family actually wants for you. See, they want you to be infinite. The Father isn't broke. He wants to give you a bunch of resources. They want you to prosper. You know, the thoughts that I have for you are to prosper you. It goes to show where their mind is and where we let our mind be. So then we think about other things. Within the spiritual community, you hear certain phrases thrown around. They say, oh, this person is a grifter if they do anything that involves money. Mind you, I got accused of being a grifter when I was doing stuff for free. So some people just like throwing that word around. They're like, oh, freely it is given. I like that verse, actually. That actually comes from Matthew chapter 10, verse 8, where it's Yeshua, right? Again, these out of context verses being used as a talking point away from what they were actually for. So when he talks about freely it is given, that's part of a commandment where he's talking to his disciples. He says, freely you have received, freely give. And he's talking about using of spiritual gifts. So he's telling them, hey, don't charge people for healing, for deliverance, for prophecy. Don't charge for that. That's a major key. Now, mind you, in my ministry, I don't charge for those things. I turn down money for those things. A lot of people try to pay me for healing, pay me for deliverance, pay me for prophecy. It doesn't happen that way. Either I do or I don't. Now, that, again, out of context verse used to mean now you have people who've never read the Bible, don't believe in the Bible. They believe that the Council of Nicaea stitched all that stuff together. It's worthless, but for some reason, they still believe that verse, freely it is given. Spiritual stuff should always be free. Now, psychologically, what does that mean? That doesn't speak to a level of value that they have for it. They're not saying this is priceless. What they're saying is they have no respect for it. It's actually speaking to a state of entitlement. That they believe all of us spiritual teachers, those of us who put in hours of our time to learn, to master, and really sustain this stuff, deserve nothing in a society that runs off of money. Now, this feeds into the other psychology that says that rich people are wicked. And that's by design. It's by their design, actually. So when we think about commodities, they'll say, oh, no, we should never pay for that. Well, think about all the other things that we pay for. Electricity is a commodity. We need that. Water, we need that. Medication, healthcare. Oh, we pay a lot for that in America. These are things that we need. Shelter, clothing. We pay for all of those things and we don't bat an eye. So we're already accustomed to paying for commodities. It's just when those commodities become spiritual, then we're being scammed, regardless of the product. Then we think about the money changers at the temple. What about those guys? Yeshua was flipping those tables. What about that? He didn't want them selling stuff. That's, again, what happens when you don't read a story all the way through. You remember him flipping tables, and those tables had something to do with money, but you don't know what they did that was wrong. He even says, you've turned this into a den of thieves. That means they're stealing. How are they stealing? Oh, it's because in the actual narrative, what's going on is that the items that they're selling to the people that are supposed to be used for rituals within their culture are the wrong items. So they're supposed to be giving them a lamb without spot or blemish, but they're giving them lambs who are missing legs, who have blemishes, they have spots, and other things like that. They're selling them things that don't actually apply. So I'll tell you this, your grifters in the spiritual community are those who are selling you stuff that does not work. Regardless of how much it is. This is if it's $1, if it's $500, if it's not working and you're paying for it, if it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, you're likely getting cheated. And that's the situation that Yeshua had. See, he's not anti-money. Remember, Judas had a job. Oh, yeah, but Judas is the one, but Judas had a job. Judas's job was his job was to hold the money. He was the treasurer. Why would they need a guy to hold money if they had none? No, Yeshua wasn't poor. He wasn't poor at all. Remember when he was a baby, when he was a toddler, the caravan of the Magi came and they brought frankincense, myrrh, and gold. He wasn't poor at all. What about when it says that foxes have their holes and birds have their nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head? Oh, head means government. He's saying, I have no place to establish the government that I'm here to embody. That's an apostolic cry. I say the same thing. I'm like, dog, this group got that group got that, but I don't have anywhere yet where I can fully establish the aspect of heaven I'm meant to embody in this moment. He's speaking of structures, not poverty. So again, let's go back to addressing the issue. A lot of you are entitled. Most of us didn't get our expertise for free. If you look at my library, I've spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on books just studying, just getting familiar with stuff, whether I was learning from it or not. So no, I didn't get my expertise for free. Most of your preachers went to theology school. They paid thousands of dollars for that. It wasn't free. Now, let's speak about investment. Just talking about me, I believe in investing in what you care about. When I find someone that has something that I don't, someone that I honor, I invest in them. I give them my time, I give them my money, I give them what I can give them. I did that when I didn't have a lot of money. I used to sneak my pastor money all the time just because I was actually benefiting from him. And I said, that was just a little bit I got. Now I know my $20 that I was able to scrape up wasn't doing much for him. My pastor made race cars for a living and was a retired veteran. He didn't need my money. But it was more so the thought and the transaction that was occurring. I was investing in the things that I admired in him. And then I started to replicate those things. That's the principle of sowing. So when we actually start to look at money and its usages, it becomes a point of transfer, meaning the intent behind the exchange is the seed that's being sown, which is why they say to be a cheerful giver. Now, I don't believe in being a giver while you're in a state of poverty. It's hard to be cheerful when you're poor. I know it wasn't fun when I was doing it. I was tithing, I was giving, and I was poor at a time, and it wasn't fun. Therefore, we stayed poor. We were just giving away extra money. It's something about being able to invest. And that's something that I live by. Now, even when it comes to my courses and classes, most people tell me I don't charge enough. But I do occasionally run into the one entitled person that thinks just because something is spiritual, it has to be free. Otherwise, the person is scamming you. And to them, I say, please, I want you to let the water company know that you don't believe that water should be paid for and demand that they let you have your water for free. It's a commodity. You shouldn't charge for it. I want you as an American to go into the hospital and tell your doc, I don't believe we should be charged for health care, and watch them charge you anyway. Just because you feel a way doesn't mean that you're being harmed in any way. In the current society, we're capitalist. That means that everything costs money. That's the currency of the world currently. Everything requires money, including ministry. So we ask questions. It's like, oh, I would love to do this. I would love to do that. Hey, I, as a teacher, can agree with you. There's a lot that I would like to do, but this stuff costs money. I would love to, and I am working on some of this in person, but it moves at the speed of the money I have. So I'm like, yeah, eventually we'll get to a point where we can have a thing that's set up where people can just come and live and be spiritual away from the world. That costs money. You have to buy land. You can't buy land with, no one owes land. No one can own land. Land was given us by God. That doesn't work in the real world. Sorry. It costs money. Everything costs money. The internet that I use to record, the software that I use to teach y'all for free or for not, it costs money. Those are bills. There was a point in time when I was making content while homeless. There was a time where I was making content while working over 40 hours a week. I have a simple agreement with my community. If I'm not making enough money where I can sustain my family, and I'm a minimalist, I'm not too flashy. If I don't have enough money for that, I'm just going to go back to work and then y'all get less, which I think is fair. Either pay for me to have free time or I go back to work and y'all get my leftover time, which again, I think is fair. And then as far as pricing goes, I personally don't charge anyone anything that I wouldn't pay for. I remember what it was like being poor and not being able to take certain classes, but nowhere in my journey was I ever entitled enough to say, I don't have the money for this, so they must be harming me. Apostle such and such is trying to get over because they're teaching me stuff that actually works and is going to accelerate my spiritual journey. Yeah, that's pride. So no. the people that you should look out for are those who have no testimonies, or very few testimonies. Some people don't like Joel Osteen. I don't have a problem with him. Why? He's not the only rich person in his church. Most of his people are taken care of. I would only have issues if he was the only rich person there and most of his people were poor. But it seems to be that what's working at the top is following and flowing all the way to the bottom. So in that case, I have no complaints. Now, again, speaking to the stigma, right? Spiritual people with money equal evil. How does that happen? The reason that that happens is because of how y'all use your money, right? When you value something, you buy it regardless of if you like the person who sold it to you. You pay your bills faithfully every month, whether you love or hate your landlord or the person that you owe those bills to. You might not even know the CEO of the company that you buy from, but you pay for it because there's value in it. You need it or you want it. Now, this creates a loop, right? Philosophically, if you believe that spiritual people should do everything for free and that we somehow are supposed to have a vow to poverty, that creates a loop where there are no investments in the spiritual community, and all of the finances goes towards the carnal things. So this is how we end up with billionaires who hate our guts. None of them are spiritual. Instead of investing our money into the spiritual community, because imagine what we get. Exclude me from this topic. Let's think about some of the other great teachers. Imagine if they were billionaires and were able to host and do all these different. How different would the world be if different people had that much money? But instead, all of us, right? So we have this weird dichotomy. Either you're wealthy and wicked, or you're poor and righteous. Those are rules philosophically that people have that don't have to exist in the real world. But because we have those psychological lies in the back of our head, training our thoughts and training our operations, we end up producing and sustaining that culture. So now when you see too much money, you see money, your mind automatically associates that with evil because you've decided only wicked people can have money. Righteous people have to be poor. And that's by design. You're supposed to think like that if you're living within the matrix. That's programming. That's not actually spirit-led. That's not actually a spiritual principle. Again, none of the gods in heaven, no one in the royal family wants you to be poor. None of them. Poverty is a curse. Lack is a curse to them. And they're all trying to prosper you. So the question then becomes, where did I get this from? Because that creates more issues. That means that evil people will always have enough money to do whatever diabolical thing they want to enact on the earth. And righteous people have nothing. They can't do anything. They're righteous, but they can't do nothing because everything costs money. So what you hear is a bunch of righteous people going, oh, I would love. Oh, it would be nice to. Oh, wouldn't it be great if? They have no money in order to bring that about. So again, exclude me from this if you need to, but let's start investing into the spiritual community, the people that you're feeding from, the people that you're actually learning from and growing with. Let's start pouring into them more, regardless of who it is. If you're learning, if you're growing, if you're feeding, if you're getting enlightened, if you're really getting some truth out of it, some real spiritual progress, start pouring into them. That's the law of investment. If you're feeding there, pour into it, you get more, and it thrives. More and more comes about. That's all I got for y'all today. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I gave you something to think about. Also, if you do want some of my code, some of the teachings and revelations I do have about making money, in my shop on caveofmystery.org, I have a shop on there. There's a teaching from a 2-day seminar that I did called Imperial Wealth. There's a lot of codes given in that. Benefit from it if you want to learn what I learned. But that's all I got for y'all. Until next time, y'all be blessed. And, as usual, caveofmystery.org is my website.